Hi everyone, my name is Janet. Now let's dim the lights.
Oh, the horror!
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things spooky, uninviting, and downright horrific. As usual, I do not take myself seriously. I really hope that you don't either. I'm just here to provide lighthearted, digestible reviews, and if you are looking for something a little bit more serious, there are YouTube channels that do that. I'm just not one of them. Let's get right into it. I am so excited to talk about this film today. I don't think I've been so excited for a horror movie release in a very long time, and this one is definitely one that leaves you thinking. I'm talking about A24's Talk to Me. So I started seeing trailers for this one a few months ago, and for some reason I had this idea in my head that it would be something like Bodies, 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 or Ouija, like a horror comedy. And boy, was I wrong. I mean, I wasn't completely wrong, but I certainly think that this film was a far higher caliber than any other teen horror movie I've seen this year. Talk to Me is a 2022 Australian horror thriller film, which is now just experiencing its first official theatrical release. It is directed by Michael and Danny Philippou and is their first feature debut. As the film has now been out for approximately a year now and has been in the festival circuits, there were a decent amount of ratings and reviews going into this viewing, and they have been nothing short of glowing. Prior to the release of this film, the brothers were actually known for their spoof YouTube videos under the pseudonym Raka Raka, and they actually have garnered quite a large audience on there, and I see where all of it comes from now watching a few of their videos on their channel. They are very witty and darkly humorous and put so much energy into every single video that each 5 to 10 minute video feels like a short in itself. Talk to Me centers around Mia and her teenage friends who discover a portal of communication to the spirit world through the use of an embalmed hand and a series of voyeuristic seances. When Mia sees an opportunity to connect with her dead mother, the group learns why the rules of the game are not meant to be broken, as they release a horrifying supernatural force beyond their wildest imagination. Overall impression of Talk to Me? Killer. There wasn't a single moment in that entire 90 minutes that I wasn't completely enthralled and dying to know what was going to happen next. And if I wasn't sitting in a recliner seat at the movie theater, I would say that I was on the edge of mine the entire time. I actually had to pee by the time the trailers came on, but I couldn't find a single opportune moment to exit the theater without feeling like I was going to miss something. I feel like I should warn you right now that my thoughts in this video might be somewhat sporadic. I feel like there's just so much to say, and I tried to organize this as best as I could, but I feel like it's kind of just a stream of consciousness. I was so certain going in to Talk to Me that it was going to be yet another overplayed social commentary film about the dangers of social media and its desperation for increasing shock value. I bet a lot of us had that interpretation based on the trailer, where you see a room full of teenagers recording and cackling over these horrifying out-of-body experiences. And it does do that, but only for a moment and not in an ageist, agenda-pushing way. Talk to Me does draw attention to the absurdity and frenzied nature of our youth when we see this tasteful and playful comedic montage of the kids taking turns chatting with the undead, but it soon abandons that narrative as soon as things take a turn for the worse. Talk to Me almost felt like an evolution of the 1990 film Flatliners. If you're unfamiliar with the film, it features a hot young group of medical students who find a way to experience the rush of near-death experiences without the actual dying. But as you can probably predict, the more that they get addicted to this feeling, the more the worlds collide and the more danger they're put in. Sound familiar? Talk to Me in a nutshell does follow a similar narrative structure, but boy does it go way deeper. At its core, the film addresses the trauma and aftermath of grief following a tragic loss. Not only that, but I feel like the journey that Mia's on and the other world that this hand plays gatekeeper to is very much similar to that of Dante's Inferno. Not only are the spirits characteristic of its sins, but just when you think it can't get worse for Mia, it does. She descends further and further into the circles of hell. Taking it back a step, yes, it is a tale as old as time to intertwine horror and tragedy. We've seen it done most recent and most notably by Ari Aster with his films Hereditary and Midsummer. All three films do occupy similar real estate in the horror genre space-time continuum, mostly because of the way that they tackle the psychological aspect of the genre. Personally, I feel like this film did what Midsommar could not do for me. It felt like Midsommar was so much more focused on creating a world, albeit one that's spooky and eerie, but it felt like the horror and tragedy aspects of that film were secondary and almost gimmicky in order to place it in the genre. But when I was watching Talk to Me, I so deeply felt compassion for these characters, and in my opinion, that makes for a compelling story. So often are these tragic backstories peppered into horror movies with so little narrative and character development that we can't ever feel sorry for that dead mother or father who have passed before the movie even begins. I know it sounds really harsh, but it's true. One very vivid example that comes to mind is 2016's The Shallows, featuring our girl Blake Lively. It's about a girl who goes out surfing to cope with the recent death of her mother, and when she's out there, she encounters all these sharks. And the film not only sucks because 80% of it takes place on a rock, but the film tries so hard to make us feel compassion and feel the pain of her losing her mother through these flashbacks and playback voicemails and things. And the foundation just isn't there for us to feel anything. What really stuck out about Talk to Me is not only the fact that we feel the misery of her loss, but that it's juxtaposed against this really beautiful, budding, familial relationship between her and her best friend Jade's family. We get to know the mother, we get to know Jade, we get to know her younger brother Riley, and we get to see Mia's relationship with all three of them, and it's really heartwarming. Not only do we feel sorrow for Mia and her collapsing relationship with her father and suffering home life, but we so desperately want to see her be accepted by this new family. And of course, neither situation comes easily for her. Switching gears entirely, again, I'm sorry, but I would be amiss if I didn't make note of how amazing the practical effects of this film were, and that really added to the realness of my experience with it. Not only is there a bevy of uniquely terrifying undead characters in this film, but we see them all so close, and they're just gruesome no matter how close you get to them. I read a review that described their certain gloppiness, and that is the perfect way to describe these characters. Not only were they utterly repulsive to look at, but there was this underlying wetness about all of them in the way that they conducted their business that I can only compare to that of the sound of someone rolling over a waterbed. It was icky. And speaking of ickiness, the levels of perversion that Talk to Me were willing to go to were honestly impressive. It became very clear from the beginning of the film that these cretins all share a certain level of horniness or touchiness at the very least. I would theorize it to be just their desperation to feel anything, to feel human and to feel lust and to feel really just anything. There was one particular moment of a bestiality that really proved to the audience that there was nowhere that the Philippou brothers were not willing to go for this film. But unlike so many horror films that rely on shock value to be memorable, as extreme as the violence was in this film, it never felt out of place or forced. I believe that Talk to Me really didn't rely on jump scares or cheap thrills to get the audience going. It really was the psychological aspect and the plot of it that kept us going. Aside from obviously the technical aspects of the film being nearly flawless, I think what really puts this film in my top 10 or maybe even top 5 horror films of all time is the acting. There was never a single moment or a single actor that took me out of the trance I was in. Sophie Wilde, who played Mia, especially knocked my socks off because there were some moments where she had to cover some pretty vast emotional ground with very little to no dialogue. And she somehow managed to cover every human and inhuman emotion in this film. And not only that, but I felt it too. Then you have the young brother Riley, whose age was not exactly specified, but I would guess he'd be somewhere around 9 or 10. And his performance was outstanding. Truly every actor pulled their weight in this film, which made it one of the most explosive and gut-wrenching films that I've seen in so long. I also touched on this earlier, but as I'm talking about it, I'm really realizing that the true magic of this film was convincing the audience to care so much about the well-being of its characters, well beyond just their survival. I'll be honest, I really want to give Talk to Me a 10 out of 10, but I feel like I shouldn't. Also, this is my channel, so I can do whatever I want. So I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 truly flawless. If there were any flaws, it certainly didn't detract from my experience watching it. This is definitely going in my regular rotation from now on. I just loved it. Well, that is all for today. What an exciting review. I couldn't urge you more to go out and watch this film. If you haven't seen it yet, I might honestly go this weekend and watch it again. If you stuck around this long, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it and you want to subscribe to it. See you next time.